So I am now setting this up to Facebook, to the Book of Face, not to my timeline. Of course, then I have to go back later and make sure that I cut off this whole beginning on the recording because nobody cares about this part.
Or you're just waiting for.
No, it's setting up to so I turned it on to record through
Yeah.
Zoom, and then now it's you connect directly to
Oh,
Facebook through this.
okay. Now
Yeah,
you
so
can see me.
and then a bunch of it like actually stays in there while you're doing it because it's, silly. Tackle the technique, belting, part deux. And we're going live. There's a whole bunch of that people will actually, I think, have heard as they're on there. So, womp womp. Oh, come on. Okay. We are golden. At least we should be. Let me just double check. Yep. Yay. All right. So, friends, Romans, countrymen, lend us your ears, and so forth and so on. Um, Sorry, just one last check in with that. Okay. So, hi again. I am super excited for this week, partly because of the topic and because there was a lot of really awesome engagement with the part one last week, but also because I have a guest host with me on the show today, sounding like a dork because I just think it's really fun to say it that way. I have Ms. Callie Sonnenberg with me today. She is an incredible musician. She is passionate about educating, about teaching students using vocal pedagogy to enhance their vocal experience, and she's a great friend to me. She is with me this week because she has also been doing quite a bit of research on the belting phenomenon and has actually helped me put together a lot of the info for tonight and also for last week. Callie, say hi.
Hi.
She has a bachelor's degree in vocal performance and is currently working on a master's in vocal pedagogy. So there's an extent to which we are both still in the learning phase. I've been somewhat in the learning phase of all these things that I've been giving to you guys, but I've had really great people like Callie helping me with some of that research. So with that, let's dig in. Here's a quick review from last week. P.S. If you haven't seen last week's video, come back to this in a few minutes. Go watch that first. It's down below on my Facebook Live. It's also in a blog post on my website, and it's on YouTube. It's in all the places. Go watch that first, and then come back and watch this. Not that I don't want to see you tonight, but this one will make more sense. So with that, a quick review of what belting is versus what it's not. What it's not is simply chest singing or chest voice singing. It's not shouting. It's not simply the chest voice pushed higher. Now, we will utilize those terms in a few minutes, and we use them in last week's video also, but they're descriptors in this capacity. They're not strict definitions. What belting is, or maybe defined as, besides being a style of singing, is it's drawing from the two more prominent regions of the head of the voice. We typically refer to the chest voice and the head voice. It's drawing from those regions in different ways, combining them in varying degrees of dominance, depending on how high or how low you want to be singing. How much more are you going to draw on those head voice muscles? Remember the cricothyroid muscles versus the TA, the thyroarytenoid muscles, those more chest voice muscles. Super generic terminology, but again, go watch last week. So it's combining those in varying degrees of dominance based on where you are in the range. So what we want to do tonight is get just a little bit more information to you about what belting can be, how it kind of works, and then another handful of exercises to demonstrate how to be working into a more effective belt in your own voice. So we want to establish the difference of viewing belt as a weight concept versus a color concept. When you hear, if you just go on the YouTubes and you watch a whole bunch of videos of belters, you get, maybe you don't, but I do, Callie, maybe you do too, you get this sense of weight more of emotional weight than anything else, I think. Belting 9 times out of 10, I shouldn't put a statistic on it, but frequently is utilized in a very emotional segment of the storyline, especially in musical theater. And so, but there shouldn't ever be this extra weight that's pressing on you. That's quite frankly not healthy. We want to approach it more from a color concept, a tone color, a tone quality, a timbre, if you want that word. And this can have a lot to do with breath, which, I mean, you cannot produce sound without breath. So we would like to suggest a few factors in understanding this difference between weight and color. And so with breath, having an understanding of how your breath functions and being able to monitor your airflow in a belt setting can help reduce tension throughout your vocal tract and can also aid in the ability to transition in and out of any sort of mix. Really quickly, if you're not sure what we mean by the vocal tract is the entire space from the inside of your lips all the way to your larynx. And this is not specific. It's not to scale, but that entire space from your vocal folds to the back to the inside of your lips, that's where all the sound is created and shaped and generated before it leaves your mouth. That's the vocal tract. You don't want tension anywhere in there. And I will now reference the jaw tension and tongue tension videos from weeks past. You don't want tension anywhere in there. And I have a history of allowing tension to creep into what could be a pretty effective belt setting if I'm not careful. And I didn't know what I was doing for a long time. So it's been quite a bit of re-education for me in that capacity, finding ways to access belting lower, belting middle, belting higher without allowing tension to play an unnecessary role in that. So with that being said, the second point would be about releasing this whole area. You could use the term relaxation, but relaxation tends to have a connotation of just letting everything go. In the body mapping community, there's a conversation about not using that word as much, especially with instrumentalists. I remember one educator talking about she had a student who was so relaxed that they almost couldn't hold their instrument up. So that's not a great scenario. So release, I think, is a better term. Callie, have you heard other terms in relation to this?
No, not really.
So release seems probably the most effective or a more effective one. So being able, again, to maintain a neutral tongue, a neutral jaw, and a relaxed or released larynx is crucial towards maneuvering any sort of mix. Go check the old videos. Regarding the larynx, there's a ton of science, so much science, and we're gaining more all the time. Because your instrument is inside your body, we have to actually use imaging technology in order to see what's actually going on in there. We can't, it's not like with with a trumpet where you can pick it up and you can see their hand is wrong here or they're not breathing well here or whatever. We can't do that with the voice. So gaining that science has taken time, but it's coming in droves right now. I feel like over the last, 10 to 15 years, there's so much new science about the voice and the larynx, specifically as to how and why it can move, and adapts the shape throughout the vocal range. But we're going to limit that for a moment to the idea of friendly pressure. Callie, can I hop this over to you since you brought this one in?
Friendly pressure?
Yep.
So when you sing, there's this thing called subglottic pressure, and basically as opera singers, we tend to have less so than a contemporary commercial singer, CCM singer, a belter. And so especially when classical singers cross over into this world of belting or musical theater or pop singing, they tend to have this thought in their head, especially sopranos, that the chest voice is dangerous, because they feel a little bit more, they feel an increased amount of subglottic pressure, although it's probably not a whole lot, but it's enough that they feel it and they think that it's bad, when in reality it's not bad, it's just a different type technique, a different type of singing. And so finding ways to make that an okay thing in a singer's brain, especially those who are crossing over, females who are crossing over from classical to belts, just allowing them to be comfortable with using their voice in a different way. And it's still healthy, it's just a different technical approach. It creates a different color, right? I mean, what opera singers sound like is completely different than what a CCM singer sounds like. And so stylistically and all of that stuff comes into play as well.
Yeah. So subglottic pressure is any air pressure coming from beneath the glottis, which the glottis is right there. So any of the pressure that comes up, go ahead.
It's the space between the vocal folds.
Yep. So any pressure beneath that, that's that pressure, and it originates basically in the lungs and moves up from there. Like Callie said, it's not supposed to hurt. It may feel, awkward or weird. One thing, I don't know about you, Callie, one thing I am always telling my students is as long as it doesn't hurt, we can continue exploring it. And we can explore it slowly and carefully so that it's also done safely. And then that exploration, it's like we mentioned last week, it's going to take time. These things take time, especially for someone who has sung predominantly classical. If you're working with a student who hasn't done much classical work, it's probably, I'm guessing, going to be more about training them to not try to imitate the pop singers on the radio.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, you look up belting on YouTube and a whole bunch of the videos that come up, actually, as I was doing some research, weren't musical theater. Here's a whole bunch of stuff of Ariana Grande and Celine Dion and, all of the pop singers who, some of them, quite frankly, are anomalies. But it's different. So teaching our students how to approach this, like Callie said, different kinds of exercises, finding what works, and then moving into that gently and carefully.
Small increments. Small increments.
Yes, small increments. It can help it can help change the idea of that being a pressure, or can help you just kind of view it differently, a different perspective on what that is. Which leads us to a third point regarding the idea of loudness, and coming back to the idea of color as a belting descriptor. It is common to hear someone, I think I mentioned this a little bit ago, utilize a belt technique and automatically associate it as a louder volume than other singing, louder than other singing, an assumption that may be largely to do with the extreme emotion that often accompanies the belt. That's the other thing. When you look at belting, the vast majority of those examples are going to be a very intense moment in the show, or an intense moment, even if it's not a musical theater piece, if it's just a pop song. It's going to be something fairly emotional in some capacity. And I'm not saying sad emotion necessarily. It can be an emotion of excitement, of great joy, but it's still an emotional response. And so this loudness that we hear can be a response to that. It could be the emotion in the role that we respond to emotionally that it affects the way that we hear. We perceive things based on things like emotions. But it's actually really attributed to the frequencies of those higher pitches. The amplitude that's provided by the microphone, which is ultimately an extension of your instrument. And even musical theater, you can see, if you're watching Hamilton right now, you can see half their mics, but it's because they're zooming in on the stage. You wouldn't see them as well if you were in the audience, but they've got the mics right here or whatever. Pop singers have the microphone. So for all you know, the sound dude in the back is boosting their amplitude so that they can be better heard. And then also the overtones of the voice and the timbre or the color of that voice. Belting done by somebody who has a, shall we say, darker or even deeper color to their voice is going to sound very different from someone who has a brighter, more sparkly, higher sounding quality of their voice naturally. The belting, we'll just use the example of Wicked. Belting from Elphaba, night and day difference from belting of Glinda, because their voice types are completely different. They could be belting the exact same notes, They could even, for all I know, I don't think so, but they could be belting those notes from the same mixed blend. I mean, like if you were to actually break down scientifically the frequencies of their voices, they could be even doing the same thing. But because their voice colors are so different, it's going to sound very different. And believe it or not, belters primarily sing at fewer decibels than opera singers. Callie, confirm that, please.
Yes. I don't remember the number. I was trying to find where I saw that or where I read it, but the threshold of pain for hearing is like what, 120, 140? Like a big thing.
Yeah, it's right in there.
It's somewhere in there. And some opera singers, you can find videos of them at over 100, whereas if you find belters, they're well below that most of the time.
And that has to do with the frequencies?
Sorry, what?
And that has to do with the frequencies that they're singing?
Not necessarily. It could be any number of factors.
Yeah. Yeah. See, science. There's tons of science to sing. There's just so much. With that in mind, we'd like to demonstrate a few more exercises. So I'm going to hop over. I'm super excited that I've been able to figure out how to do all of this on the interwebs with all y'all. That is not the screen that I want. Nope. That's the screen that I want. So we've got here a couple exercises. And let's do it this way. A couple more exercises. So Callie is Callie's a soprano. I am very much not. And so I'm going to let her demonstrate these first couple exercises. Just a quick reminder, again, I said this earlier, but it's never a bad thing to reiterate. When we say CT-focused exercises, CT stands for cricothyroid, which are the muscles that are primarily responsible for producing the higher pitches in your voice. You might call them the head note or the head voice notes. You might call them the falsetto notes. There's a variety of terms. You might call it, eventually getting into the secondo passaggio. At any rate, these are the higher ones. And being that Callie is a soprano, I'm happy to hand them off to her.
Yeah. So this first one, we're going to use the sound, the sound, like you hear in the word sing. And basically what this exercise is doing is it's just helping you to find that placement that lives right here, very forward. So sometimes for me, I like to say the word before I go, just so I have a mental, physical idea of where I'm supposed to be at. Because especially this one is new for me too. I just did it 20 minutes ago.
You're a pro.
Right, so it lives right back. And in your mind, it's going to sound probably disgusting. To me, it sounds really kind of nasalized, but that's what we want. We want it to feel like that. Anyway. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't really want to go on with that one. But
Callie, how does your ah change with that NG?
So my ah, it's living up. It actually could be probably a little bit more forward. But this, like I said, this is new for me. So playing around with bringing that A forward, we want it to be an right? Mm-hmm. So tongue forward is really important. Touching the tops of your teeth, preferably. And that also helps to stabilize your larynx as well.
Which we want.
Important, right? But yeah, I want it. You want it to feel like right behind, just right up here. Almost like it's shooting out of your face. So, does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Can we move on to the next one, or do you want me to do this one more?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay, so the next one is kind of, so it says little girl voice light edge. So what we just really want is we want that little kind of um, little girl sound. Like think of a 4-year-old. I think of my cousin's little twin daughters, and their voices are so high pitched and just kind of smack you in the face when you hear them talk. They're the cutest little things, and they're so high, and but that's what I'm thinking of. So you want to start off with that very bright ah, and then move to why. And the reason that I think that they're using the words why is because it's helping you to keep the space really, really small inside. We don't want it to get too big. We don't want it to, I mean, we don't need to start being our own amplifiers, which is what would happen if we started to open up too much. So we're using vowels and consonants and all of the glides and all of those things to our benefit here. So something like that, and then just allowing this to kind of live in neutral, or let it drop how you need to, but don't you don't need to open up super wide, and you also don't want to deck up and keep it too small, because otherwise it's gonna why can't I think of the word I want to use? Affect. It's going to affect the way that the sound happens, the way that you produce a sound, and it's going to cause tension to creep in one way or another, because it's either too much one way or too much the other way. So watching out for things like that is important.
Cool. So then let's move on to a few TA focused exercises, or thyroarytenoid muscles. And again, these guys are primarily responsible for the lower notes in your register. And because I like to live in alto land, I am starting on a lower segment. There's 3 of these, and this is the lowest one. But as you can see, it is meant to climb really quick. They're in here in these different lines. We're seeing different IPA symbols, International Phonetic Alphabet. These basically these symbols are telling us how to pronounce the vowel specifically for the exercise. If you don't know what they are, you can look them up, or you can shoot me a message. The idea is that we're using a vowel shape that is more comfortable, more easy to produce in a certain part of your range to help encourage that forward placement. So, hey, hey, hey. You can try out with different vowels. I'm going to skip to the third one. Ho, ho, ho. So the idea is that you've got the little bit of slide to just. I tend to prefer a slide, especially if I'm not super warm, because it helps just encourage the vocal folds to get moving a little more gently, as opposed to smacking them up to the top note. Because really, who wants to be thrown up to a top note like that? You can continue climbing with this particular one, or you could move on. So Callie had the NG. Here now we've got an NJ, so a nya, and a really nasty nya sound. I've had teachers always talk about like the Looney Tunes witch, nya 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 nya, that kind of sound. Or there's, she shows up at some point in a Bubble Guppies episode. I have a 4-year-old child, so we're very familiar with the cartoons. So in this one, right here in this first one, alternating between a nye and then a nya, to help, again, like Hallie said, the whole idea is forward, really as much as you possibly can, because that's releasing pressure back here. It's also allowing you more flexibility if you need to change a vowel shape per the word. Nye, nya, nye, nya. can do is you can lean into the NG or into the NJ, the ny. Nye. Anytime you've got an N or an M particularly, you can just kind of sit in those for a split second before you move on. It helps you to really clarify the note, clarify the pitch, and then open up into the vowel. Callie, how high would you say you can utilize that in your soprano life?
The closed,
Yeah.
like in classical singing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh gosh. I don't know. Probably
Like frequently, infrequently?
no, frequently. I mean, like every time I'm in a lesson when Dr. C's warming me up, she's always
Yeah.
like, sure you sing on the consonants.
Yeah, yeah.
Up there. You know, honestly, sometimes I have no idea even how high she brings me, but
Right.
she's always like, make sure you use your consonants.
So for those who are saying that you cannot do both, you can. And you just adapt the exercise or the technique, you adapt it for the style you're singing. Boom. So similarly, this is almost identical, just a different vowel. Nyo 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 nyo, nyo 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 nyo, nyo 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 nyo. You're just building it up. At that point, now your tongue is starting to work more quickly, so you're getting a little bit more flexibility in your mouth. So then lastly, we have a couple blending exercises, and this is what belt is all about. Belting is finding how to mix the lower and the higher and when to mix and how to make it easy for yourself without it being never painful, without wondering, oh my gosh, is my voice going to crack? And I can tell you, for me, on a good day, where I have to completely leave my chest voice and I have to switch. On that same day, I can blend. I can bring my head voice way the heck down if need be. That doesn't mean I can bring that volume level way down, but that's where your consonants come into play, along with the forwardness. So a passaggio, negotiating, ascending, blah, blah, blah. Passaggio is dealing with the singable range. And there are definitions to that. If you're not familiar with that for right now, don't worry about it. You know what? We can put a link in there. Go ahead.
Passaggio is just kind of like the transition stage between modes, between voices.
Right, right. So it can be confusing or it can be not. For now, we'll just sing the exercise.
It's confusing because it's different for everybody.
Yes. Yes. So Callie's passaggio is completely different from mine because our vocal ranges and types are so very different. So here again, different, a couple different vowel colors. We're kind of digging into the evening, but you guys are great for being here with us. There's a whole bunch of friends watching. So hi everybody. Super glad to see your names. Okay. So we've got a whole bunch of half steps here, and this is again to facilitate movement now. Hey, hey, it's right in here. Hey, hey. It's all of that placement is sitting right in here. If I were singing an ah, there's no way. It'd be way back here. That's for my voice. But that A vowel allows you to keep it forward. And then we have similarly, I'm actually going to skip to the second one, number 9. This gives you facility of different notes, all of those half steps. So really getting that dexterity in your voice of being able, your ear training at the same time. Not a bad gig. So we've got that I right at the beginning. So similar to Callie's Y exercise, that really you can get a whiny sound right in there to just shove it right forward. And then on the go at the bottom, hopefully the idea that I will try to get across is that whininess, that forward placement that you can keep even when you get to an O, which in classical singing is O. It's not forward at all. Often. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. So the first two, my go was not way up in here, but it's a C4. It's a middle C. By the third one, I was very much in my nose all the way through. There are exercises that will work for you. There are exercises that won't work for you. There are exercises that will work for you on a given day that will not work for you on the next day. Having, though, a chest of exercises at your disposal, a tool chest, if you will, is huge in order to train yourself, in order to figure out what you can do. And really, one of the biggest things is knowing what you can do and not forcing yourself to go beyond that.
And
Just
every day
because,
we're different.
yeah,
You can't do everything every day.
yep, yep. And so, along with that, a vocal coach is always a great idea. If you're really wanting to pursue some of these things, the interwebs can get you quite far, but they can't get you all the way because they're not going to answer your specific voice. The internet cannot listen back to you. And right now in this season, oh, thank you, John. In this season of all the online things, we are all online teaching. There are many, many ways to find a vocal coach, even if you just want a one-off, just one lesson to check in, find out where you are, how your voice is doing with this or that. Like, there are plenty of teachers, quite possibly Callie and myself included, who could help with that. So you're not on your own, because we do want to show one more quick exercise that can be very helpful, is not necessarily for a beginning singer or a young singer or a less experienced singer. Is probably better to do with a vocal coach, or if you have a fair amount of knowledge and experience already, this could just be a tool for you to kind of go that next step. Callie, you want to cover the shout real quick?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so uh, the shout exercise, that's how everybody refers to it as. All the pedagogues that I've seen, the most recent one on one of the Nats talks from the conference, this is how he referred to it as, and his student did wonderfully with it. But it's, I mean, the word shout, if that word works for you, great. If you find a different word that works for you, also great. But so kind of what this exercise is doing is, so first and foremost, this exercise is not to be taken past kind of your first break. So once you're starting to get out of mode 1, your chest voice, which is generally somewhere around G4, F sharp.
For females.
For females, yep. You shouldn't really take it higher than that. And every day could be different. Maybe you have one half step here this day, but you don't have that half step the next day. Mm-hmm. That's completely fine. Anyway, what it is, so I'm just going to start on E4. So it's a fifth, so you're just going to shout, hey, hey. And so you find this placement, you find this resonance, whatever you want to call it. Play around with it a little bit, and then hey, hey, and then you slide down. You play around with that a little bit, and then later you can take it a little bit further, and you go, hey, hey. Easy. Once you figure that out, go up a half step. Hey, 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 right? So then it stays all in this nice, sweet spot. Mm-hmm. Vibrato is not necessary in any of these. If you don't have it, it's totally fine. Belting does not require vibrato, actually. Mm-hmm. Just because you don't have it doesn't mean that it's not working right. Vibrato is, in CCM music, it's kind of more of a stylistic choice more than a necessity.
Right.
I mean, if you let it kick in, everything's working great, but you can choose, it's not necessary.
Yeah, it doesn't make you less of a singer.
That's a whole box of words too. We don't want to get into, but so that was, I just took it up to F sharp 4. That was the highest I went.
Okay.
but I could go up another half step or two
Mhm.
for no problem.
Mhm.
But just for the sake of time, we can stop there.
I would like to just say that that is the deepest I have ever heard Callie sing, and it was super
No, no,
fun.
no. No, no, no. I sing lower. I sang a G4 in I Think That He Likes Me by Kuman and Diamond.
Well, I don't remember that, but I believe you.
True story. You can ask
I was
that.
there. I know you sang it.
It was very
um,
difficult. It was very difficult.
that's
I,
hilarious because that's like my happy life right there. G3. Psh. Um, Yay. So just a couple closing things right now. It is this is just so much fun to have somebody to play off. It's not just me. One, be intentional about mapping your voice, if you will. How did you get there? When you're singing an exercise, when you're singing something, how did you get to whatever point it is that caused you to stop with a question mark or to stop with a yay? That was a very much what's her face from Parks and Rec, yay moment. Leslie Knope, there's her name. Anyway, how did you get there? How was it vocally that you got to that point? How was it perchance emotionally that you got to that point? Did the emotion lead you to that vocal moment? Ask yourself the questions. How does it feel? Does it feel painful? Stop. Does it feel weird? Keep going. Does it feel, can you describe? Always asking my students, always, 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 what do you feel? What does it feel like? I can't stick my hand in your throat and feel what's going on. I need you to demonstrate. And it's okay to have really odd sounding descriptions. It's okay, but ask yourself the questions. What are you noticing? Anything that is different, anything that is unique, anything that is new is worth paying attention to, because if it's a good one, you want to be able to repeat it. If it's a bad one, you want to know what it feels like so that you can avoid it before you get there. Also, like we said earlier, pay attention to what your voice can do. If your voice is not naturally put through vibrato, okay, cool, leave that alone. Focus on other things. Personally, my vibrato didn't really kick in until I was about 23. Now, could it have kicked in sooner with different vocal instruction? Maybe, but I was never aware of it really being there. And then all of a sudden it did. And, so pay attention to what your voice can do. Experiment with different vocal tract shapes. Experiment with those vowel shapes. Experiment when you're doing exercises. Play with different consonants. An S at the beginning of a consonant is going to be completely different than an M at the beginning of an exercise, than an M at the beginning of an exercise. And there are days when S is going to work great, and there are days where it's dreadful. So try different things. There's no such thing as a wrong syllable. There could be a better syllable in your exercise, but you don't know until you try. I will be putting obviously the exercises we've done on the blog, so they'll be there, and we can link some others too, just so that you can see different samples. Focus in on what you're feeling. What is it? Do you feel it in the nose? Do you feel it in the back of your throat? Do you feel it right in here? Do you feel it here? All these things are questions that only you, as the singer, can really diagnose. Because it's your instrument inside your body. So we hope that this has helped. And John D. Delval, it occurs to me that we still did not explicitly answer your question of extending basically the chest voice beyond its current range. But I think that what we've done will help, and what we've demonstrated helps side answer that, in the concept that you can do things like this to figure out what your voice can do. Obviously, your voice is only going to go to a certain point. When you are growing vertically, your body stops at a certain height. Your vocal folds stop at a certain size, and your range is going to stop at a certain point based on how those folds are designed. Callie, you going to add to that? I thought I saw your arm go up. Go.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, it didn't. But I could, your vocal folds are only so big, and they're really tiny.
Yes.
They're really small. And everybody has like a certain thickness and a certain length to their vocal folds. So the higher you go, the less of your vocal fold vibrates. And so
Mm-hmm.
once you hit that limit, you can't go on. And
Yeah.
then as you go, I mean, that's when the most of it. I mean, we got false folds, which whatever. But once you hit your limit, I mean, you're done.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do much beyond
Mm-hmm.
what your vocal folds have.
Right.
And then just with extending, I feel like just extending the chest voice, it's just that color because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your chest voice, I mean, there are certain, like we know for men, this is generally what a chest voice is. This is generally what a head voice or falsetto is. For women, we have, this is generally what it is. This is generally what head voice is.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that, just kind of that mixing and the blending of the voices, I think just utilizing different colors and timbres really
Mm-hmm.
is what people are getting at. And
Yeah.
belting is one of the ways in which
Mm-hmm.
we can make that happen with a specific color.
Right.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. So, yes. So we hope that this has been helpful information for some of you. Please feel free to share all the things with all your people. This was the last topic that had been requested for me to tackle. So I don't at this moment have any plans for further videos, but if someone wants us / me, whatever, to yes, John, yes. So we've got a comment. It seems to be about exercising to maximize your potential and maintaining it. 100%. That also goes to what your voice can do. So I know personally what my limit of my chest voice is. I know what my limit of I won't actually say I know what my limit of my predominantly chest mix is, because with the vocal issues I've had and with the work that we've been doing on that, it has changed a little bit for the better, definitely. But I'm very clear on where some of my vocal limits are. And so maximizing my potential has a vast amount to do with how well I warm up my voice and how well I prepare it for whatever I'm going to sing. And then again, the maintenance factor. So,
It's like working out.
yeah, you are working. I mean, it's tissue that needs to be exercised
Absolutely.
gently, very gently. But yeah, so if you find yourself watching this and thinking, wow, I wish that Mandy would cover this other topic, please feel free to let me know, and I will do so. Until then, Callie, thank you for doing this with me,
Yeah.
even though we're not in the same town, but that's okay.
Oh,
We're together online. So, Callie, I'm going to put you on the spot. Are you, by any chance, open for new online students?
yes, but I probably wouldn't start them until fall.
Okay.
The summer's getting close to over, and
Yes. And everything's going to look different in the fall anyway. So,
yes, we're kind of waiting to see like what's going on, and then yeah.
right. So, friends, if you're looking for a vocal coach, feel free to let me know, and I will see what I can do to help you find somebody, either me or somebody I know. I mean, my schedule's quite full, but I just want to work with all the people, or help you find somebody in another capacity. We want to share the knowledge. So, with that, we're going to sign off. Thank you again, Callie. We'll give you a round of, not a round, well, no, the golf clap. And dear friends, thanks for joining on, and we will see you next time. Bye.